On any given morning, the Kulak household is decidedly not a quiet place. Sometime around 6 a.m., Killian and Margaret begin to stir. In theory, they are supposed to stay quietly in their room until their clock turns green at 6:45, but in practice, not so much. It doesn't matter what time they go to bed. We can run them ragged. We can make them do laps around the neighborhood, keeping them up until 9, 10, 11 p.m. They will still wake up around 6. And they wake up with a vengeance. The noise begins immediately. Dinosaurs roar, the Tony box blares, songs are sung, cars vroom, and it continues all morning, morphing into breakfast appeals and lunch demands and song requests on the commute. Now, I must admit, we've at least partially brought this upon ourselves. In our new house, we thought it would be a good idea for them to share a bedroom and have a separate playroom. In the old place, Margaret was a champion sleeper. She might stir a bit, but then she would put herself back to sleep, leaving us with a quieter start to the morning. Now, she seems to be the main instigator. Over the monitor, we often hear, "Baba, Baba, wake up!" sometimes as early as 5:45. The noise begins early. And it doesn't let up. Isn't this a metaphor for life, especially in our modern age? The noise is constant. You don't have to be parenting young children to understand. The smartphones in our pockets epitomize the noise, always buzzing and beeping, the push notifications on, pushing through advertisements and emails and reminders and alerts. Remember to keep your Duolingo streak going. Respond to this not-so-urgent email immediately. Look at this post, check out this sale, watch this video, reply to this text. Noise, noise, noise. A couple of weeks ago, I even suggested from this very pulpit that you create another reminder in your phone, another notification, as a way to remember God's presence in your life. Another alert, well-meaning to be sure, but another alert all the same. Like one of my favorite bands from the early 2000s, Switchfoot, I wonder if I'm just adding to the noise. Of course, Christians have always sought to respond to this worldly cacophony with spiritual disciplines, especially those of silence, solitude, and even pilgrimage. One of the reasons people have always embarked upon sacred journeys is to break the routine, to step out of normal rhythms, to slow down, to escape the noise. There's the noise. Perfect. That's amazing. I didn't plan that. But slowly stepping into the quiet was definitely one of the reasons that animated my pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago earlier this summer. Walking itself can open us up to a reorientation, especially if we are attentive to it. We feel the gentle rhythm of our own movements. We become mindful of our bodies and our environment in a natural pace. We create space to pray, to reflect, to breathe as we go, an opportunity to unhurriedly meet with the 3-mile-an-hour God, as the Japanese theologian Kosuke Koyama calls God, the slow God. As we walked in Spain, I relished the slow, quiet moments in the forest or field or sleepy villages when I could disconnect from all of the things, the noise, and could reconnect with God, with nature, with myself. It's going to keep going, isn't it? And one of my favorite and most grounding moments on this trip was actually on the night before we began walking. On the edge of the village of Triacastella, Carrie and I discovered a vibrant green field full of tall grass gently blowing in the breeze, an equally vibrant forest in the background. We could hear songbirds. We could hear the rustle of that grass. And in the distance, we could hear the steady rumble of a small waterfall at the tree line. Sound, to be sure, but not noise. We lingered in that place, basking in the stillness, the quiet, the peacefulness. And thinking back to that moment, I am mindful of Elijah's experience that we just heard a few moments ago. Great winds, earthquakes, burning fires, but God present in the sheer silence, that minute stillness, as Robert Alter translates it, or perhaps the still small voice. And noise, sound, quiet plays a central role in our gospel reading today. Jesus has just fed the crowd, not sending anyone away, as we heard last week, but instead embodying God's loving presence and provision. All had eaten and were filled. But then it was time to go home. Jesus needs time to recenter himself. He needs a break from his work and the noisy crowd. We've all been to a sporting event or a school cafeteria or a restaurant, and we know the din of the crowd, that noise, that overstimulation that can occur. And I also bet that we've all probably overworked on occasion. Jesus needs quiet. So he dismisses the people. He tells the disciples to get in the boat. And if we look back at the beginning of last week's gospel, we notice that Jesus had already been trying to get this break. There, the passage starts like this: Jesus withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself, but the crowds had followed. He lovingly attends to them, engaging in this community, being with them. But now he needs to step away. After he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. This has echoes of the beginning of Mark's gospel, when Jesus rises early in the morning so that he can find time for prayer. And here, in both places, Jesus models the real human need to slow down, to rest, to be silent, to experience solitude, to be alone with God, to quiet the outside world and the internal rumblings. It is then from this place of quiet, of rest, of stillness, that Jesus encounters the storm, the vast noise of the storm, and walks on the water. The storm, is violently raging, churning, screaming. In the biblical world, the storm is chaos, uncertainty, terror. And Jesus enters this scene in peace, with peace. He brings the calm, the centeredness of his prayer retreat on the mountain to bear upon the absolute chaos and noise of the world, of this storm. In another storm story in Mark's gospel, Jesus speaks directly to the storm. Peace, be still. Here he simply shows up in peace, peace overflowing from his presence. And Peter wants in on the fun. He gets out of the boat and sets out on the water just like Christ, but soon falters. He's a great stand-in for us. Commenting upon this passage, Anna Case Winters says, his experience, Peter's, is our experience. And how true. How often I set out, but quickly falter. The noise raging in my head, unsettling me, distracting me, keeping me from God's peace, from being able to follow in God's ways. There's so much chaos raging and churning around us and within us. So much noise, much of it channeled at us 24/7 by our devices, keeping us distracted, keeping us disoriented, keeping us overwhelmed. And perhaps if we want to follow Jesus on the water, we must first follow him up the mountain. Maybe to experience and to really hold on to the peace that Jesus brings amidst the storm, we first need to pursue the peace that he seeks away from the crowd. Maybe we need to turn off the noise and really meet with the one who brings peace. Of course, neither the crowd nor the noise are the issue per se. We are made to be with other people, to be in community. And there is certainly noise when we gather. As we speak, as we laugh, as we cry, music is noise. So is the rustling of the wind, the call of the bird, the giggle of a child. All of these are good. The problem is the noise that disconnects us from God and self, that distracts us from the things that matter. The noise that tells us that we are not enough, that we aren't useful or efficient or productive or good. The noise that tells us that we don't have enough, that we need to accumulate more and do it quickly. This is the issue. The noise that is distraction, hustle, numbness, busyness. The English priest David Adam was a long-time rector of St. Mary's Parish on the tidal island of Lindisfarne in northern England. For much of the day, this island is connected to the mainland by a land bridge. But twice a day, for nearly 5 hours each time, the tide rises and Lindisfarne truly becomes an island, cut off from the mainland by the waters. St. Aidan founded a monastery here in the 7th century. And then St. Cuthbert made it famous throughout the medieval world, and it came to be called Holy Island. Writing about Cuthbert, Adam says this: Cuthbert recognized the need for rhythm in life. Like tidal Holy Island, we sometimes need to be part of the mainland and all that is going on, and sometimes we need to separate out and be an island for a while. Perpetual busyness is a great danger to the life of the Spirit. And in our modern world of constant noise and activity, it is more important than ever to learn to be alone with God. Perpetual busyness is a great danger to the life of the Spirit. And in our modern world of constant noise and activity, it is more important than ever to learn to be with God. Being alone with God is exactly what Jesus does at the beginning of our gospel. And I wonder how we might follow that example. On the Camino, I knew how easy it would be to finish walking each day and then just lay around scrolling on my phone, promptly reconnecting with all of the noise that I had just left behind. And because of that propensity, I made a plan. Back during COVID, another time when I needed to put the phone down, I took up making rosaries, slowly and meditatively using my hands. I decided to continue that practice on the Camino. I packed and carried all the supplies that I would need for each day, and once we finished walking and got settled into our hotel, I would go up the mountain, so to speak. I would find a quiet place nearby to work and reflect upon my day. A few times, I sat on the ground outside of an old church. Once, I sat at a restaurant sipping a beer while Carrie read beside me. Another time, I sat inside a quiet church, quiet at least until 2 Spanish women began praying the rosary. And then, to finish this rosary, I sat in the Cathedral of Santiago, squinting in the dim light to bring it all together. All the while, in the stillness and quiet, in the simple rhythm of a manual action, I sat with God, praying, reflecting, dwelling, abiding, listening. And it seems to me that the key here was the plan. I needed that plan. The noise will keep coming. The kids are going to wake up at 6 a.m. every day. What will I do to account for it? What's the plan? How can I be thoughtful about my real need to rest with God? Where will I find the space, to be still and quiet. Maybe for me, it's continuing to make rosaries, to dedicate time to that rhythmic, reflective practice. Or perhaps it is walking, carving out that space to move with God. How will I keep going up the mountain by myself to pray? How will you? Perpetual busyness is a great danger to the life of the Spirit. And in our modern world of constant noise and activity, it is more important than ever to learn to be alone with God. How will we go up the mountain by ourselves to pray? How will we be alone with God? Amen.